Hi, everybody. How are you doing? I'm Dr. Gail, and this is Aurora. And thanks, Aurora,
Hello.
for being here. She is an ET experiencer, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of things today, mainly a lot about definitions and things that we call things or define things. And one is the ET experiencer. So, Aurora, let everybody know about yourself.
I sort of became aware of this whole world of ETs in 2020. So I'm not a what they call a lifelong experiencer, but it has been just an incredible ride since then. As my ability to become aware of the beings that are hanging around me, that's been, increasing. And I suddenly, blossomed into an intuitive artist where I only used to be able to draw stick figures before. Now, I've been drawing these really beautiful portraits of these beings who are, either connecting with me or they want to connect with other people. Although I have kind of taken a little break from that right now because it just got to be a little overwhelming. But yeah, my experiences that I became conscious of have been happening since 2020. But just because I don't remember the experiences that I am sure happened before 2020, that doesn't mean that there weren't any there.
Have you
It's
done
just,
any regression therapy?
nope, but stuff has been coming back to me little by little. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because I didn't mine started in 2020, same time as you, but
Hmm.
I started remembering in the past on things going up in the spaceship as a child and remembering that.
Okay.
And then I did a regression therapy with Barbara Lamb, and we discovered that I was going up as an infant.
Oh
Um,
my, wow.
and I described the room and the cribs and everything that was going on in there. So it was pretty fascinating. But let me say hello to the people that are coming in here now. Hey, Annie Bear, thanks for joining us today. Hey, Jen Carr. Hello, Dream Journey One. Hey, Seascape. Hey, Emmy J. Thanks for being here today. Hey, Viviani. Hey, Lacey. Hey, White Dragon. Um, oh, look at White Dragon saying, your art's so beautiful.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Thank you.
So, A3, Debbie Three Shifting Veils, thanks for being here today. And hey, Lauren, Ian, who else is here? Hey, Seascape, thanks for being here. Hey, Julie. Um, who else we got coming in? I've got a lot of people. Hey, M. Okay, and thanks, White Dragon, again. You're watching out for us. Please like and subscribe and put any questions in all caps with a question Q in front to help out Gail a bit. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see who else is here. Hey, Sona Watt, thanks for being here. Hey, Linda Thompson, thanks for being here. And today we're going to go over kind of some of these definitions that we kind of throw around all the time. And we're so used to it and evolved because even in the, I remember at one time, like a, Aurora is an extraterrestrial experiencer or alien experiencer, whatever terminology you're wanting to use. And I would say several years ago, I didn't even know what that was. And somebody said, "Oh, you're an ET experiencer." And I'm going, "Oh, what is that?" Yes. And of course I am. So I want to just talk about a little bit about the ET experiencer and the definition. And it's individuals who claim to have had personal experience or encounters with extraterrestrial beings. Just as simple as that. And we were talking about in the background before the show about how people think you don't aren't having any encounters unless a spaceship lands in your backyard and the ET gets out and says hi. That's it. But there's hey Akila, thanks for being here. But I've got the list of what the encounters encompass, and this is from the Hynek 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 scale, and it's the close encounter scale. Y'all can look this up, but I'm going to go over a little bit about it. Um, and it has, I think it's 7 or 8. I can't remember how many lists, but I'm going through them. And the first one, and these are all considered, if you have these experiences, that you're an ET experiencer. Okay, so that's an extraterrestrial experience. So we shorten it by saying ET. So extraterrestrial is ET, or that's alien, whatever you're comfortable with. So, hey, Hypnosy. Hey, LP. Thanks for being here today. So, number one, close encounter is the lights in night sky. Just if you're seeing some lights in the night sky, that is an encounter. So it's as simple as that. If you're seeing lights in the night sky, that's an encounter. And that's the first one. Number two, if you see a UFO or UAP, and that's unidentified object, or what's the other one? The UAP. What does that stand for?
Oh, unidentified aerial phenomenon.
There you go. Thanks. Unidentified aerial phenomena. If you see that, that is two. And if you see that in the daytime, that is two. Number three is if it can be confirmed by radar, what you see. If you see a spaceship or what you think is a space or something during the day or night or whatever, but it is identified by radar, then that's a three. Number four is what we called a CE1 also. It's a close encounter one, but that is labeled on number four, and that is a visual sighting. That's when you do see a UAP or UFO, and it's less than 500 feet away from you. So it's close to you. So this is one that we're getting now to the scale of 4, but then it is labeled a CE1. I would say that's probably a CE1 like on, what's his name scale?
Greer?
Greer, yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Okay, so then the fifth level, which is considered a CE2, Close Encounters 2, is a UFO or UAP sighting, and it interferes with your vehicle or your electronics or your devices, and you can have a physiological response to it. So that is that's the fifth on the scale, and that is a CE2 also. The next is the psychological response considers it could be paralysis, you can have heat, you can have discomfort, and you can go into trance-like state as all those. And it's also when you see the ground scorch or there's vegetation or chemical reaction to the area around where the spaceship was.
Like physical evidence, you mean?
Physical evidence, and that's a CE2. So the number 6 on the list, which is a CE3, is a UFO UAP encounter, and it's with an encounter with an entity involved. And it can be a humanoid, a robot, or a human that appears to be piloting the spaceship. So that is CE3, and that's 6 on the list. 7 is a CE4, and that's when you're actually what a lot of people consider it as an abduction. I consider it as you volunteered to go with them, or you got a history with them. And so that is CE4, or number 7 on the list. Number 8 on the list is a CE5, which we hear Stephen Greer talk about all the time, is when a person has a physical effect, an injury, or a healing from the encounter. So that means basically you've been taken up in the spaceship, and you've had some kind of encounter, or they've come into your room and have done some healing, or you've received some kind of injury from that interaction. And the next one, the last one, and this was new to me. Oh, one more thing with the CE5. It's also human initiating contact with ET, and that is a Stephen Greer type of event, and it's direct communication between the ET and the human. And number 9 is a CE6, and that is a sexual encounter between human and ET, which I didn't know that there was a label, because I think Stephen Greer called CE6 something different, but this is on this scale on the Hynix scale. So there you go, everybody. And you've been involved a lot in the CE5. I remember you talking about going to it all the time and being in that.
Yeah. We get together once a month. Sorry about my dog. He's needing attention right now for some reason. Yes, you're such a good boy. Yeah, we get together with friends about once a month, and it's really wonderful. We all, we meditate together, and there's a sense of loving care, and we basically just send out that message out into the universe. And we invite beings who, are positive and want to be friends and play nice to come and join us. And sometimes they do. And sometimes, we do experience some of the close encounters that you just described from that list. But those I've noticed focus mostly on things that are measurable and visible in 3D,
Right.
like the evidence, like seeing something that's on radar and so on. And I'm not sure if Dr. Greer on his list brings this up at all, but most of the contacts that people are having are through telepathy and during dream time and during times when, they're not necessarily fully aware of what's going on. And so, when I hear people say that, oh, I'm not an experiencer, and they don't believe that they've had any sort of interaction with ETs or beings from other dimensions, I beg to differ. Because if you're having an emotional response to this topic, in other words, you seek out interviews like this or discussions like this because you like what you're listening to and you're curious and you are engaged, that's an indication that you've had contact. If you hadn't, this wouldn't bother you. It would be of no interest to you whatsoever. So there is something that you have experienced within yourself that maybe you're not aware of that is actually resonating with what you're listening to, like these types of conversations. So my understanding is that, especially lately in the last few years, these ETs who are interested in having mutually beneficial open contact are reaching out to individuals now. They've tried to go the government route, but that's really not going anywhere. And so what they're doing now is they're reaching out to people, to individuals, and, communicating in that way. The reason for that, aside from the fact that, we're all working towards open contact and we kind of would like for it to happen, relatively soon, is that the telepathic communication allows us to get a sense for the presence of these beings in a way that is not as physically threatening, let's say, as it would be to just see one of these beings, in person without any preparation whatsoever. So these beings are connecting with us telepathically, and it makes no difference whether or not you're conscious of it. You are having contact. And when, direct face-to-face contact does occur, what will happen is we are going to be recognizing these beings that we are already familiar with on a subconscious level. So it won't be quite the shock, the ontological shock that a lot of people are afraid we're going to experience. It'll be more like recognizing, somebody that maybe you've known for a really long time and, you haven't seen them in a while. It's like, oh, I remember you. So that's basically what my contacts have been telling me, that it's going to be more like a family reunion than this really shocking, open contact experience. It's not meant to be frightening to us. The ETs are very conscious of that. And I'm being told time and time again that they're not going to be intruding into our reality until we are ready to receive this information in a way that is beneficial for, everyone. And, like I said, keep in mind, if your first thought is, I've never had contact, the fact that you're even thinking about contact is an indication you've had contact on some level. I really do believe that. And I'm getting confirmation of that from other people, as well as from my own experiences. Before 2020, I had no interest in UFOs and any of that. I had an awakening at a meditation center when I went there for a course in the summer of 2020. And then after that, all of a sudden, ETs were a thing. And I started to remember some of the things that had happened prior to 2020 that I dismissed as, encounters with maybe an angel or a spirit guide. And I realized that even though some of those experiences could very well have been with my spirit guides, there were some that were undeniably related to ET contact because other people had contact with that same being. which is another mind-blowing concept because we all kind of live together close to each other in Florida. We're all communicating with the same ETs. So go figure, that was prearranged. And also, as I've been becoming increasingly more and more aware of the contact that I am having, I'm also getting a better sense of the contact that I don't remember having. In other words, I know I've been on spaceships. I know that I've been there. There's nothing anybody can say to convince me otherwise, but I don't have the same clear experiences that Dr. Gail describes about her visits on spaceships. For me, what I remember feels a lot more dreamy. It's a little more fuzzy than the physical reality that we're experiencing right now. And what I've learned over time is that those types of experiences will have that quality. And just because they feel dreamy, that doesn't mean that they're not real. It's just how we perceive connections with other beings on that level of existence, because we are multidimensional beings. That's the only reason why the ETs can actually contact us in our dream state and telepathically. That's a whole other realm altogether.
Well, don't you think, Aurora, that that's what we're comfortable if they're contacting the dream state, they're contacting you when you're comfortable accepting the information or accepting them. And standing in front of you might scare the crap out of you and you go running out of the house, but if they come in your dream state, you're much more receptive to them.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And that is their goal. They don't want to threaten us. They don't want to, want us to run out of our house. So they approach us pretty much based on our terms, whatever it is that we're comfortable with. That's very, very true. But a lot of us have a tendency to dismiss everything that is not validated by another person. For example, I could be standing in my yard and I'm looking at the sky and I see a UFO. Right. And I turn next to the person who's standing next to me and I tell them, oh my gosh, did you see that? Did you see that? And they say, no, I didn't see anything. Now, at that point, I am questioning whether or not I actually saw it. So here's the thing. We are more likely to give importance to what somebody else didn't see than we are to our own experience. Okay. So, and this is just part of our conditioning, to doubt ourselves in this way. It needs to be validated by somebody else in order for us to consider it as real.
I mean, well, that started off in the 40s and 50s when they were telling people they were crazy for those.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right. So I decided that, if it's real for me, then it's real. And I decided to just go with that. Now, I don't go stand on a soapbox and try to convince the world to see things my way, but it works for me. And the more I committed myself, to just believing in my experiences and what I'm sensing, and not just what I'm seeing, but also what I'm sensing, what I'm dreaming about, that those things are indeed real. The more real they actually, began to feel. And the more contact I was able to be more conscious of. So it takes a little while, but I think the first step for those who say that they've never had any experience is to just contemplate the idea, consider the idea that you already have, and you are on your way to becoming more conscious of it. I mean, it worked for me, and I know it worked for other people too. Yeah.
Yes, and then you found your community to talk about it.
Right. Exactly.
That made a big difference.
Absolutely, because we do need validation. We do need confirmation. Obviously, that helps a lot, and it's important. So, listening to shows that, talk about this, or listening to other people have, the experiences that they have will actually jog your memory because, there's a list of 6 or 7 things that Dr. Gail just described, but typically most of us are interacting with these beings at on a telepathic level, subconsciously sometimes, or we are in our astral form when we visit their spaceships. So that's what happens most of the time, from what I understand, and based on what I've experienced. It's a lot more difficult for us to go in physical form to a spaceship, just because of the vibrations of the human body, just the way that we are built. We're supposed to have a frequency that's compatible with a 3D frequency, our physical form. Well, if these beings are, operating in a 5D realm, then our physical body is not necessarily compatible, and we can actually get sick. Now, Dr. Gail, how many times have you woken up in the morning feeling like a truck ran you over and then backed up over you again?
A lot of times, and I'll go, "What did I do last night?" But
exactly.
my beginning was, when they told me to go on a bland diet for 5 days, I didn't know why, so I went on the bland diet, and bland diet is potatoes and pastas and breads and things like that are really easy to digest. And then they contacted me, and the next thing is I was going on a spaceship, and of course I was glad I did that because I was sick for weeks after that, and every time I went up I was still sick. It took me a long time to get used to going up in that spaceship because I kept physically having a reaction to it. And still to this day, I do have, just probably within the last 6 months, I've had to experience the same thing, not to the extent of what I did in the beginning, but I have had to experience that before. And a lot of people get the dizziness in the ears. Me, it's the nausea and the flu symptoms.
Yep. And, just as it's difficult for our physical form to, transition from one dimension to another, that's why we feel sick. And I think a lot of people assume that they're just ascension symptoms, when in reality, they're just recovering from a visit to another dimension. But in the same way that we have difficulty adjusting, the ETs have difficulty adjusting to our frequency. And that's why more often than not, they will send these little robotic beings, sort of this bio robots. The Greys especially are famous for sending in those little guys that, are just a hive mind, basically. And they are the ones who actually bring us to those ships. So I don't know how often really is, face-to-face interaction with the actual ET being down here on the planet. I don't think that happens very frequently for specifically those reasons. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay. Well, I think it was Jen talking about earlier where she had asked them not to scare her, which is what I said.
Yes, good.
And I said, I'm ready to see you in 3D, but don't scare me. That was, and then probably within a week or two, I was at the dog park and 2 people came in, no car, no dog, and they were very strange. It was a brother and sister. And it hit me the next day. They had done just exactly what I said. They sent 2 people that were 2 ETs. They could only carry on a normal conversation for a little while, and then it went wackadoo. And so, and I got out of the dog park because I was like, oh my gosh, let me get out of here. The hindsight, and I didn't recognize it until the next morning what had happened. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I could ask all these questions if I knew who they were, but.
Yeah. The other thing that I've learned is that humans, we have very intense emotions. And to these beings who communicate telepathically and are able to pick up on, subtle frequencies, to them, when we get all excited, we sound like we're yelling at them. And that's not pleasant. I mean, think about it. Would you want to be around somebody who's just shouting at the top of their lungs as they're talking to you? So, they also keep their distance because of that as well. And they recognize that, we haven't been learning how to use our telepathic abilities, where they receive guidance and instruction that from practically the day they're born. I mean, it's just such a fundamental part of their society where we don't have that, and they do understand that we need help to remember. It's not that we need to learn how to communicate telepathically; it's we need to remember how we do that. We already know it. It's not. That's the thing about psychic abilities. I really believe there's nothing new to learn. It's just a matter of remembering, how to do it. And we all have that. We all have that memory. And as we, become more and more aware and conscious of who we are, those abilities, those memories of how to use these abilities are going to start to become increasingly more and more obvious. Yes. And,
gradual. In the ballpark, they were reading my mind because there were things I was saying, like when they came in, I'm going, why didn't they close the gate? My dog's in here. And then they stopped and went back and closed the gate. And then one sat right next to me, and I'm going, wow, this is weird. Somebody's sitting right next. She jumped up and moved to, and I was just thinking it, but they were reacting to what I was thinking and overreacting, As I said, it took me to the next day to figure out who they were.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
done just what I said. I'm ready to meet them in the 3D, and they
Mhm.
don't scare me. And they sent me 2 human-looking ones, and never saw them again.
Yeah. And there are some who are actually here in physical form, like you said, Dr. Gail, it took you a little while to sort of get adjusted to that transition, back and forth. I'm sure they go through a similar process. In fact, I'm convinced of it, but there are quite a few who are actually here. And it's not just the ones that we hear about, hiding in underground bases, military bases. They do walk among us.
They do. And I was
Mhm.
told, they told me they can stay here about 3 months before they have to go
Yeah.
back. And it's part of trying to adjust or trying to study us.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they were proud of themselves if they can carry on a conversation for
Mhm.
more than a few minutes. Like for me, when their interaction with me, I think they made it maybe 10 minutes with me before I'm going, who are these people?
Yeah. It's overwhelming. It can get really overwhelming. I had a couple of experiences last week, for 2 consecutive days. And on Monday, I had to sleep all day. I was so exhausted emotionally, my energy, everything. But I had a great time while I was interacting with these beings. I learned a lot. And the other thing that I found out during this last experience is that we're not the only ones who are learning from them. They're actually also learning from us.
Yeah, they are. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
there
they're
are.
learning, especially the emotions.
Right, right, exactly. We have really strong emotions, and not just that, we have a wide range of emotions. And apparently, most of the beings out there don't have the same range that we do. I mean, think about it. You can experience the pits of despair, uh, you know, at some point in your life, and then in that same lifetime, you can experience, the bliss of enlightenment. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm enlightened, but I have experienced both ends of the spectrum. So that's unique and unusual. And there are other things about us that are fascinating to them. Um, a lot of the material things that we take for granted, like washing dishes, some of them find it really fascinating because
Mhm.
I have found myself in the kitchen washing dishes, and all of a sudden this thing pops in my mind going, wow, that's really
What,
cool.
what is it about washing dishes that
I don't know.
it's
I
also there? I'm not sure if it's not the water because they get me
could
in the
be.
shower also.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, in the shower too. That's right. Water seems to be around.
Mm.
Maybe because water is a conduit between dimensions, and maybe that's what they use to get in touch with us. I'm not sure, but
Later.
there are really mundane things that we do that they find absolutely fascinating. Even eating, because some of them don't eat anymore. Just a whole process of how our digestive system works is just fascinating to some of them. And it's kind of fun when somebody comes up to you and they have no concept of personal space or privacy.
I was
And
going to
yeah, that's maybe too much information.
say, Christine has a question. Says, curious, what did they say, Dr. Gale, that made you leave? Well, it wasn't exactly what they said, but they were. Um, I was going, oh gosh, these people were really on the spectrum, and it was warm. It was hot
Mm,
warm outside, and they started talking about coats and jackets. And should we throw this coat away, or should we wear this jacket? And I'm going,
uh,
I don't know who these people are, but I'm out of here before this conversation goes.
yeah, yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the spectrum, being on the spectrum, because my son has Asperger's, so he's, on the functional end of the spectrum. And I got to say that a lot of the traits that I see in him, I'm also picking up from many of the other beings who are connecting with me. And so it's interesting, they've labeled autism as, a disability,
Mhm.
and it's a very bad thing. And I'm not saying that it isn't. There are people who obviously are unable to function, at least not in the way that we expect them to function in this realm.
Right.
The telepathy tapes is a prime example of that. If you haven't listened to that, I highly recommend it.
I haven't listened to those yet. Everybody's talking about. I always wait till everybody quits talking about a
Mm,
subject, and then I'll go and listen to it because I don't want to be influenced by
mhm.
the conversation everybody's having about it.
Yeah. I didn't listen to all of the episodes. I think I listened to the first 3, and that was enough for me to come to the conclusion that, oh, wow, the human mind is capable of a lot of things. And I recognized some of the beings that had contacted me in, these children who had these abilities. And so I'm actually wondering if people who have autism aren't necessarily, like the next step,
They are.
I don't know.
I've always thought they were. I mean, even way in the beginning, I've always thought the ones that had autism were the children that are coming in that do have more DNA of the ETs or the aliens, and that they are the next whatever coming in. It's like they're the forefront, like we were on a lot of things, and they're the forefront on the next abilities, and they're telepathic, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that's coming in, where they're not functioning, speaking and things, but they are telepathic, and we just haven't figured all that out yet.
Yeah, yeah. And, they label it a disability because it's not in line with our system.
Right.
And I'm actually wondering what other mental illnesses or disabilities out there are mislabeled only because they don't function, those individuals don't function in line with what we expect of individuals in our society.
Right. Schizophrenia is a big one.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly the one that I was thinking about. So, I think it's a good idea to sort of be able to see things from different perspectives, because it is true, those individuals can't function in a way that, integrates them in our society very easily. And that is difficult for them, I'm sure. I know it. But at the same time, from another perspective, that can actually be something, that is of a higher level of awareness than, us, the normies, so to speak, or however you want to say that. It's like, I don't mean to offend anybody or tell anybody that their disability is actually a gift, because, it all depends on how you use it and how you look at it. What I'm trying to say is it's good to keep more than one perspective.
Right.
And not dismiss things that, the mainstream is so quick to label as, negative or bad or whatever. There's always another perspective on everything.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about your paintings, sculptures, transitioning into all that from the stick figures. And
yeah. Well, I know that some of your viewers have heard my story before, but you said that there's a lot of new people on your channel. So just, making a long story short, I went to a friend's house. So the first time I went to this particular friend's house for a CE5, getting together and meditating together and calling out to ETs, in this gesture of friendship. And this friend of mine happens to be an artist. And I got a tour of his home. It was my first time there. And I went into his art studio, and there was something about that place that just really resonated with me. Now, we had some experiences during that CE5. We did see some ships, we saw a few things, but it wasn't anything spectacular. It's not like anybody beamed down to say hello or, ships landed in his backyard. But after that, I had this sudden urge to start drawing portraits of ETs, or to start drawing ETs. And I was a little surprised because I didn't think I had any skill. I mean, I was drawing stick figures after that point. And when I actually started drawing, I was amazed at what was coming out on the paper. I mean, it was pleasant to look at, but there was more to it than that. It was as if these beings were using that image that I had drawn to project their energy through it into our space. And I thought, you know what, maybe it's just me. I'm looking at my own stuff, and, I'm biased because I really like what I'm drawing, and I'm surprised at my ability. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I didn't even realize of the timing of how this came about. It was much later that I realized that maybe somebody downloaded something that CE5, and I was open to it. And
I wish they would download artistry in me.
Right. There you go.
All the beings that I meet.
Right. And so, I started drawing these portraits. By the time I was drawing the third one, it seemed to me like that being, it was a mantis being, was talking to me. And it had messages that I was supposed to give to somebody else that I barely knew. There was a young man that I met at the C5 that I'm referring to. And that was the first time I saw him. You know, I didn't know anything about him. So I was a little reluctant. It's like, I don't know that I should do this. But in any case, I decided to take the chance. I figure since he didn't know me, what do I have to lose? If he thinks I'm nuts, I'll never probably see him again. So, and I started to text him as I was making this drawing. I told him, you know, I don't know what's going on. This has never happened to me before, but I'm drawing this portrait of this mantis being, and he is telling me to send you information. So as I was going through this drawing, I was sending him texts, and I was amazed at his response. I was validating some things that there was no way I would have known about him. So everything I said to him totally resonated. And then a few months later, I guess he went and had his Akashic records read by somebody. And he went to the trouble of telling me that everything I had said to him actually got validated by this other person who read his Akashic records. So clearly, I was connecting to something, and it was unintentional. I was not, you know, I was just enjoying myself, you know, drawing my drawings. And that was the first time that I got a message for somebody else. The drawings that I had before that, I was still dismissing all of that as, oh, it's just my imagination. Although I got to say, I never thought my imagination would be that wild with some of the stuff that was coming to me. But in any case, I had no reason to take myself seriously. But after this, I realized that, hey, you know what? Some of these beings have messages that they want to communicate, not just with me, but with other people. So the first group of beings that I drew was a council of 8. And these are the beings that I was mentioning earlier that, you know, all of us who are sort of huddled together in Florida, kind of in the same general area, we all have connections to these 8 beings. So those were the ones that I drew. And it was pretty amazing to see the reaction from my other friends who knew these guys, you know, how they responded to these portraits, how they recognized these beings. And, you know, that was a lot of fun and encouraging. And so the word kind of got out as I was sharing these portraits on Facebook. And so people started asking me, can you draw a portrait for me, you know, of somebody who wants to reach out to me? And I did start doing that. And what started happening was because of the overwhelmingly positive feedback that I was getting and I was sharing on Facebook, more and more people wanted me to draw portraits for them. And it got to the point where I had about 40 people lined up. And it takes me about 2 to 3 weeks to do one of these portraits because, you know, I have to eat and sleep. It's all, you know, as much as I would love to draw 100% of the time, there's other things I got to do. And, you know, there's laundry and things like that. So I realized that I was beginning to feel overwhelmed. And, you know, there was no way that I would have been able to get, you know, the 40th person would not have gotten this in a timely manner. And because I felt like, you know, timing was relevant for these connections. So I decided to step back from that a little bit. And what I realized is that, you know, on the one side, I had this increasing line of people who wanted to connect with their contacts, you know, ET contacts or other dimensional beings. And on this other side, I had this crowd of beings who were very excited about connecting with their families, their people. And there was no way that all of this information could be funneled through one person, at least not through me anyway. So the message that I got, because I had this, like, you know, I got to be able to put these people together, you know, without me being involved, because I can't handle it. I can't be the channel for this. It's not my place anyway. You know, I want to empower people to make their own connections. What the message came through after that is that I needed to share with people the importance of not dismissing what appears to them as their own imagination in the way that I had at the beginning, not realizing that these were genuine messages that I was getting from these beings. And, you know, exploring the idea of telepathic communication or communication through other means other than, you know, speaking face to face or, you know, verbal communication, I guess is what I'm trying to say. because these beings were communicating through me, with me telepathically and also through my artwork. And so there are other ways that they communicate. And so, now I am encouraging people to open up to different modalities of communication with their star families, because they're there and they want to communicate with us for the reason I explained earlier. They don't want to be shocking when they show up here. They want us to recognize that we already know them, that we trust them, we're friends, and so on. So that's basically the message that I've been encouraged to share with, whenever I get a chance. So that's what I'm doing.
What about your sculptures?
Oh, yes. The other thing that developed from this artwork was this desire to bring these beings into our realm in more of a physical form. So the drawings, you can think of them as a two-dimensional representation. And these little sculptures that I started making were a three-dimensional representation. So we've, at this point, expanded into a higher dimension. That's at least how I looked at it. Mm-hmm. So to me, it implied, expansion or growth or ascension, I guess you could use that word. And I was very encouraged because that indicated to me that we are getting closer and closer and closer to physical, open, face-to-face open contact. So I have been playing around with, making little figurines, and I have one of them that I could probably show you. And then
let's see it. Yeah.
Let me see if I can show that to you on this camera. Hang on. All right, so I brought a couple of them. One of them is not finished quite yet, but this one, I'm going to turn him around. Let's see. Oh, you can see him.
Yeah.
So he's a little ET. He's actually on a shell that I found on the beach, and he looks like he's surfing because there's this wave of energy that's coming from the center of our galaxy, and I can feel it, and it does feel like a wave. So he is surfing the wave of energy, and he is pointing out at the stars, pointing out at us, basically, in the same way that we're here pointing to the stars and, reaching out to our ET families and friends. They're doing the same exact thing. And so that's what this little guy is doing. And he even came through with a name of Teakum. So that sounds a lot like one of the names of the Ponti, which are the grays that Sue Walker has been channeling.
What was that name again?
Teakum, like Tekum.
Oh, okay, because
like
I was going to say T-Tom was actually my first.
Interesting. So he's talking to you.
Well, he was my pilot of the first spaceship. His name T-Tom, though, Teetom.
Interesting. That's very close. So, and the thing is with these names, that's another thing that I really wanted to bring up, is we each perceive these beings in a way that, we are filtering it through our own conditioning and our own experience. So I may be hearing or even perceiving a being in a certain way, and somebody else may be perceiving that same exact being, but slightly different. And just because we're not seeing the same being, that doesn't mean that we're not connecting with that same being, which is a perfect example of what you just gave, Dr. Gail. The name is slightly different. It could very well be the same being. The fact that you and I know each other.
Yeah, it's because this guy was a gray, which that looks like.
Right, that's exactly what he is. He's a gray. He's a little gray.
Yeah, he was actually a gray hybrid, but he looked like a gray.
Yeah.
And so, but he was the captain of my first spaceship, the Astar Medical One.
Interesting. So, these are the kinds of things that are fun to explore. Don't dismiss the messages that you get or the senses that you get, with a specific name. Just go for it. A lot of these beings really don't care what you call them, to be honest with you, because I've been told time and time again that the message is much more important than the messenger.
Right. And also we can't pronounce their names.
Right. Exactly. And so they're not offended by any name that you give them, as long as, if that's what you need in order to refer to them when you're communicating to somebody else, that's fine. All right. This is another one that I'm working on, and she's a work in progress. This is like polymer clay, and the rest of her, she's sort of meditating. You can see the wires. I'm working on her still. And so this one is actually a personal connection that I have with an Arcturian who taught me what I can only describe as Arcturian Reiki. Okay. Her and I, when she was teaching me, it was as if our energy fields overlapped and her center and my center became one. And I allowed her to sort of she would be moving her arms. I mean, her energy basically is what it was, influencing my own energy to move my arms in certain ways, and, expressing certain emotions and intent. And, it reminded me of when I was little and I was dancing with my dad on top of his shoes. You know how, you kind of, he moves you around, he's kind of leading. And it was that kind of an experience. It was very sweet and very loving. And when she decided that I had enough training, she left and I haven't heard from her since. But, just in memory of that, this is what she looked like and felt like to me, just really serene and very sweet and very loving. And, I'm not in a rush to finish these. Let me put her down before I break her. I've been working on that one for a while, but it's fun, it's enjoyable. And I can see tangibly, I can see what I feel. So I encourage you, it doesn't matter how much talent you have, go for it, and draw what you see or what you feel. And don't draw it because you want to show it to somebody else and get feedback on what a great artist you are. Draw it for yourself. If it feels, draw whatever you feel, the color, everything. It really helps. It helped me to become more aware of who it was that I was connecting with. And, it was very helpful. It was very helpful.
Right. Yeah, I'm very connected to the Arcturians myself. Of course, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Their connection.
Yeah. They're pretty amazing.
Yeah, White Dragon, the Ashtar Medical One is a hospital spaceship that is for hybrids only. So it's the mixture. It's like a hospital. It's not that large. I mean, it is large, but it's not anything like the Athena. But it's a hospital spaceship, and it's specifically for hybrids. Like there's a spaceship that is like specifically for Pleiadians, one that's specifically for Arcturians, specifically for Greys, and the spaceship, the Ashtar Medical One, was for hybrids.
That's pretty amazing. I know I've been on one of your spaceships. You said that you remember seeing me in one of them. I know I've been on one of them.
Yeah, you were on the Athena.
Yeah, that's what you said. And see, that's the thing. You have these really clear, vivid memories of being there, where to me, it's, more like a dream. But it's interesting. How would you know what I'm dreaming about? That's kind of what I'm saying, which, indicates to me that was actually a real thing. And, those kinds of dreams do feel different than, dreams that are just dreams.
Right. And those kind of dreams stick with you and you wake up and go on, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you don't always dream in literal terms of what you're seeing. You can have a dream about being in some weird school bus, okay, going on a field trip somewhere. And that may actually just be the way your mind interpreted what was going on. So that can also happen.
Because I did have something like that when I was in the airplane. We were going somewhere, and everybody was unconscious but me. And it was a plane filled with light workers. And it was all the people who were on YouTube and doing things and that are out in public. The whole plane was filled with those people. And I'm looking around going, oh my gosh, look who that is. Oh my gosh, look who that is. Why are they asleep? Why are they unconscious? Why is everything? So we ended up landing and going into a big metal building and sitting down at these long tables. And all I could keep saying to them was, what about my pets? Where are my pets? What happened to my pets? And so they took me to a room where they had my cat in one room and my dog in another room. And so, but it was fascinating that it was all light workers. It was all people who were out in public about doing these kind of things.
Yeah.
And that were, so I know it was not an airplane.
Right. That was no airplane. That's for sure. Yeah. The airplane was just a metaphor.
Yeah.
for what was actually going on. Yeah. So we
Right.
do dream in metaphors.
Yeah.
I
Oh, well,
think Seal had a song about that.
yeah. I'm gonna pull up this question, a few questions here, and here's one from Andy Bear. Beings from other dimensions are not necessarily alien; they
Right.
are us in different timelines of
Yeah.
awareness. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
definitely, and also it's our higher selves in those different dimensions too that we're getting
Mhm.
information from our higher selves.
Yeah. In fact, if they weren't, we would not be able to resonate with them. We share a frequency with these other alternate versions of ourselves. And that's really the only reason why we can connect to begin with or find each other to begin with.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's a very good point to bring up.
yeah. And here's LP. She's saying, when I think of ET, I think of the film Close Encounters. I'm sure that's what you're talking about. So,
Yeah.
and that was actually a film that was real.
Yeah.
That
That's what I heard too.
yeah, that it was actually a real things that somebody encountered. A real what do you call it? Recall of an events that somebody had. That film was made of. So that was ET or an extraterrestrial close encounters. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. LP. Um, Karen saying beautiful sculptures. Um, so you're getting a lot of wows on your stuff, Aurora.
Oh, I think we're both getting wows because this is pretty cool conversation.
Okay, Karen, I have seen a mantis in my meditation inviting me into a spacecraft. I see small grays controlling the craft, smiling at me. After the meditation, I had doubt about what I see. How can I trust? But that's a great
Yeah.
question, Karen. A great
Yeah.
question. Mine, how I trust is how I feel.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say too. Yep.
Go ahead, or
Oh, if it resonates with you in a way that makes you feel happy and complete in a sense. Um, like if you're thinking to yourself, oh, wow, I really wish that that would happen. That's an indication that it's resonating with you, first of all, because that's how you feel when things resonate. You feel excited and exhilarated and just, happy about the whole situation. So if that's how you were feeling during your meditation, then that's an indication that that was indeed a valid connection that you had. And yes, in meditation, we are in that dreamy state like I was referring to. And that's why when we come out of meditation and we're back to, beta waves, you look back on that and think, oh, maybe that wasn't real because probably was just a dream. And no, don't dismiss that. Don't dismiss that.
well,
Our brains have different brain waves, it's
what I'm getting out of this is she's wanting to know, make sure she's safe doing this. And
oh,
that's,
okay.
that's kind of,
Oh, I see. I see. I thought she was referring to trusting herself.
I think this is more trusting them because she's seeing a mantis being in grace and they're smiling at her.
Okay.
And if she is having that kind of encounter, you do
Yeah.
hesitate. It's my very first time when I'm walking into a spaceship. The very thing I said before, I stepped into because I had gold beings taking me up there, and I was thinking, am I being abducted? And then I'm taking my last step into the spaceship, and I'm going, okay, well, here we go. Well, it turned out to be an excellent, experience, and nothing bad happened. And I would have followed them again. But you do have that hesitation. But it is, think of your heart, think of how you feel,
Mhm.
think how that's affecting you. If you're not scared, well, you're apprehensive no matter what, if it's a very first contact. But if you're not scared and you're just feeling the love and the
Mhm.
cooperation from them, then it's probably your family you're actually going to.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that helps, Karen. Anything more about that? Or
No, I think you pretty much covered it, and I think you're right. I think I was answering a different question. Because, that's kind of where my head is right now about how to trust yourself. But yeah, no, I totally agree. We like you said, you brought up apprehension, and that's very, very true, especially if it's the first time that you become aware of this. But considering that you saw the grace smiling at you,
yeah,
that kind of hints at friendliness. So you were probably picking up on,
well,
positive reasons why you were there. That would be my suspicion.
yeah. What I'm picking up is they were smiling at her because it's about time you came back home. That's
Ah,
what I
yeah.
get. Like you're back to where you belong. You might not remember where you belong, but you're back where you belong.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Okay, let's see. Debbie, what are you saying here? Is there a message they're trying to give me when I see their faces in meditation? Well, not necessarily. When you see their faces, I just think they're just revealing themselves. What do you think, Aurora?
I think so. I think what they do is their approach to us increases. We become increasingly more and more aware of them as they come forward or they come through with, increasing intensity. In other words, first, maybe you see them in dream time, maybe you don't remember your dreams. After that, maybe you see them in meditation, so they're putting forth a little bit more energy so that you can be a little more conscious of their presence, just to see how we respond. If we get terrified, they'll pull back. And I've seen that happen to me.
Yes.
So I think that's what it is. It's just a process of reminding you that you already know them. I think that's what it is, because they are our families, like you said, Dr. Gail. I think that's it. Yeah.
They're families, but I just really felt like, who was it, Karen? That I felt like that really was her family. That were smelling. Yeah. Like a welcome home. And here's Patricia. She says, hello, Dr. Gail and Aurora. I was contacted in meditation by a star being about 18 months ago that communicated with me telepathically. They were making the rounds like a welcome wagon saying hello.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yes.
That was a welcoming party.
I'm glad that was a good experience for you, Patricia.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what we have here. Hypnicity. Let's see. It looks like you have hypnicity. Have people had ET experiences in past lifetimes? Oh my gosh, yes.
For sure.
We are actually ETs in our past lives. So if you ever had a chart done, a starseed astrology chart done, you'll find out how many different kinds of contexts or different planets that you've lived on yourself. And as I tell everybody, I'm going, my next lifetime, I want to come back as somebody's guide. It's okay if I come back as an Arcturian as their guide, but I want to be somebody's guide going, no, I told you so. No, don't do that.
How many times do you have to bang your head against that particular brick wall?
Or how many times do you have to date that same guy?
Right. That's funny.
So anyway, that's what I want. So I put it out there already that's what I'm going to come back as, somebody's guide. And I'll take an Arcturian guide because they're supposed to be really good guides.
Yeah, all right. I would second that.
Hey, Michelle, have I ever been on a spaceship? Well, Aurora, you want to take that one?
Let me take that one. Yeah. The simple fact that you are even contemplating that possibility is an indication that you have.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're here validating your experiences.
Absolutely. You already know this. Now think about, how you felt when you heard the answer that you just heard. Did you feel excited? Because that's another indication that you were. It resonates with you. You already know whether or not you've been on a spaceship. So, when you hear that validation, pay attention to how you react to it. If it's a very happy thing, then, it's an indication. It's yet another little bit of information that you can use to, validate yourself that you did have that experience.
Okay, well, here's this last question here. Hypnicity, where can I get a starseed chart? I know Anne-Marie does those charts, but I'm not sure she has a channel up, and I can't figure out about her right now. But I know Ursula from Ascension Playground. You can look her up on YouTube. She does those charts. So that is Ursula, and that is Ascension Playground, that you can get a chart like that done. My chart, when I got my chart, it was like, it was filled up with all my ET past, my different places I'd been, different people I had been. So but anyway, there you go. All right, everybody. I'm sorry we didn't get to all your questions. Thanks for joining us today. And Aurora, thanks for being here. It
was great being back. I love you. This is fun. We have fun on these shows.
Yes, we always do. So anyway, anything new coming up for you, or any more shows or anything that you're doing?
Nothing in terms of my artwork. I've given a couple of other interviews, that are on YouTube. My friend and I are actually contemplating the idea of doing a podcast together. And so that's sort of, kind of in the background, and, we'll see how that plays out. But that's kind of where I'm headed. It's all about being able to reach as many people as I guess is appropriate, or as reaching the people who need to hear this message, I guess is what I'm trying to say, about opening up to the possibility of communicating with these beings through other means than just verbal communication.
And let them come out of the shame closet.
Exactly. Yep. That's what it's all about, really, right now. I think that's important.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks, moderators, for keeping this a safe place. And thanks, everybody, for joining me. My next show will be Saturday, and that'll be with Terry. And so anyway, thanks, everybody. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.